Welcome to Seeking Alpha's CEO Interviews. Quality of leadership is a decisive factor in stock performance, so we provide in-depth interviews with the best and brightest CEOs in the public markets. We publish limited excerpts from our interviews on social media platforms and the full interviews at seekingalpha.com and in the highly rated Seeking Alpha mobile app. To find the full interviews, open seekingalpha.com or the Seeking Alpha mobile app and search for the phrase CEO Interviews, or simply type a stock ticker into the search box.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Today, I'm joined with Trxade and Suren Ajjarapu. He's the chairman of the board and chief executive officer. He served as the chairman of the board and CEO since their acquisition of Trxade Group in 2014. Suren's been a co-founder and a chairman of multiple organizations throughout his career. Trxade has created a disruptive internet platform for drug purchases and have signed up almost 12,000 independent pharmacies for its network to offer drugs for multiple pharmaceutical wholesalers. And they trade on the NASDAQ under the symbol MEDS. Suren, welcome to CEO Interviews, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Jason. I appreciate the opportunity to join here.
Great. And we have a lot of great questions for you. I think before kind of getting into the details, I think it would be helpful for listeners to understand kind of your background, how you made it here, and kind of how you got to this point with the organization.
Sure. That's a great question, Jason. Sean and I used to own independent pharmacies in the Tampa Bay area. And we understand the pain points that independent pharmacies went through and came out with a solution. And the three biggest pain points that independents go through are one, the payment terms that the big three offers, McKesson, Cardinal Health, and AmerisourceBergen, and the two, short supply information is not readily available for these. And the three is cash flow issues and negative reimbursements. And those are the three pain points that these independents went through, and we came out a solution called Trxade that brings them. Just like any other online trading platform, we're trying to eliminate arbitrage inefficiencies because these manufacturers have made this pharmaceutical industry as commodity. Once it becomes the commodity, you have inefficiencies, arbitrage. On top of it, these independents don't have the time or resources to shop around. That's what we try to bring in through our trading platform called Trxade that brings buyers and sellers together. And this is not a new concept, but first in pharmaceuticals, we brought this concept that brings efficiency, centralized procurement system so that the independents can focus on their dispensing the drugs than worrying about the supply chain.
Right. Okay, great. And that's from going through your presentation, it seems like there was a lot of synergies and a lot of win-wins for the independents in using the platform. Correct.
Yes.
Right. And because you have such a great background in the pharmaceutical space, in the retail customer facing space, could you kind of bring us through, the current landscape, like how drugs are purchased now, how they're delivered to pharmacies, and how they kind of end up in a consumer's hands? Traditionally.
Sure. Yeah. And traditionally, the average drug changes 5 to 6 different hands before it actually reaches the retail customer. And from a manufacturer to the wholesalers to among the trading among themselves, and then finally to the retail and retail to the end user. I am trying to eliminate a couple of these middle layers so that the margin can be passed on to the end user. I know some of these insurance users may not feel the pain, but the pain point, if you are a cash-based patient, or even though you pay towards the insurance, it will add up to your yearly out-of-pocket expenses. So they don't realize that, my copay is only $30 or $25, but it adds up to your, if I'm taking average, American takes 20 different drugs, including the vitamins and stuff, it adds up. So that's what the landscape is. If you're looking at the total market size of $685 billion by 2023, currently the sales flow through the big chains like CVS and Walgreens. That's not our market. We focus on the 21,000 independent stores that are out there, but they still have a purchasing power of approximately 72 billion annually. And usually these pharmacies buy 80% of their products through large wholesalers like McKesson, Cardinal Health, and AmerisourceBergen. That much concentration over the years led to a price and cost transparency, thereby resulting very severe limitation on the purchasing choices these industry participants have. On top of it, the Affordable Care Act was pushing them to the corner so that these independents are looking for alternative ways and means to safeguard their diminishing margin. And that's what Trxade has created, a distribution solution within a cloud-based marketplace for these independents that brings them the purchasing efficiency, pricing transparency, and means of product sourcing that meets their desired transaction terms from multiple reputable suppliers.
Okay, fantastic. And that is kind of almost perfectly in line with your presentation. I think you guys mentioned digitizing the retail pharmacy experience. Is that kind of a good way to look at it through a consolidation?
Yes, that's what we're trying to bring the efficiencies in. Like if you look at the, I know, just a step back, today's trying times have shown all the importance of good healthcare. It's timely diagnosis and the deliverance of appropriate therapy, whether it's a medication or otherwise. As you know, the healthcare is very complex with varying priorities among stakeholders, and runaway costs for every unmanaged treatment is very high. Additionally, consumerism demand is at all-time high. The need to take one's health into their own hands has never been stronger, and a holistic approach to well-being is reshaping these healthcare institutions. And I know you may argue there are a lot of innovative companies that are here today trying to bridge that gap in our fragmented healthcare system, but none have the story like Trxade in ours. And like we're trying to bring in a simple solution to help pharmacies to capitalize on the pricing arbitrage of these pharmaceuticals, one today that involves a grander vision of bridging the gaps in health services, especially experienced by the providers and patients. That's what Trxade is all about in future.
Mm-hmm. No, that's fantastic. And kind of going through some researching this prior to our interview, I didn't even know that a lot of pharmacies, they actually sell pharmaceuticals at a loss, right? I think it was mentioned that they don't make profit, right? This maybe can help them.
Yes, just a typical, like I'll run through an example of an independent pharmacy that does like 3 to 3.5 million annual revenue. They make 10% take home, like as a net margin, $300,000. Losing $30,000 to $40,000 on a negative reimbursement from that, that's a huge dent into their negative profits. And the reason they do it is they don't want to lose that customer, even they make it loss. And second thing is they don't know what they're going to get the reimbursement. When I was mentioning earlier, the cash flow issues. And so whatever I buy from big three, 1 to 15, I have to pay them by 7th business day. Versus I need to wait for my reimbursement to come from 45 to 60 days. While during that time frame, the price can change and the demand can change. So that information is crucial. That's not readily available, what I'm going to get. So that's the information that we provide at the point of sale itself to these independents, which is the information can be crucial, where these big box chains will have millions of dollars of IT systems. When it comes to the independent, he doesn't have the IT systems to take that knowledge into effect when he's dispensing the drug or at the same time procuring the drug. That's what this platform provides them. Easy to use, centralized. At the same time, like before I dispense, I know what I'm going to make. And can I buy this at this price? I'm still going to make the money, not having a negative reimbursement. So I know I have addressed two different questions for you. One on the negative reimbursement, other thing is the cash flow at the same time. Sorry, Jason.
Oh, no, I appreciate it. Actually, I had another question kind of getting at that. And I didn't really even understand, I go and pick up a prescription. I have no idea that, there's accounts receivables. These guys are waiting for money. I just go in as a consumer. I don't see some of the pain points that they're dealing with. So I absolutely appreciate that. It does segue into another question I had about retail chain profitability. It seems like Trxade offers kind of a health ecosystem. And apologies if I'm missing anything here, but it opens up other revenue streams for them in terms of like telehealth and some of the other services you provide as well. I think Bonham, the organization you guys purchased, if you could talk about that, it would be fantastic.
Yeah, that's great segue to why we're getting into the B2C is, and as you're aware, in the last 10 years, we garnered around 12,000 independent pharmacies. Through that, indirectly, we are serving 12 to 15 million patients. And how can I help these independent pharmacies buy more from me? And by giving them, I'm expecting them, if I give them the lost revenue, not only on the drug savings, I'm able to put more money into their pocket, but now additional business. Right now, if you look at any telemedicine, telehealth prescriptions, they're walking into the big box chains. So the model that we were trying to bring in through our consumer business to consumer model, which is nothing but our Bonham Health, is one, can I empower these independents, offer them the telehealth services to the patients, and the two, and the prescriptions that are walking into this big box chain will reroute it to these independent pharmacies. So that way I'm expecting them to buy more on my platform. So if you look at the Bonham Health, our current model is to deliver convenient, affordable, non-urgent care solution to the nation's 32.8 million. Of course, we are all 50 states available. Our model is a subscription model for a 5 primary care visits. It's a low end, but our affordable solution is market today. Our model is partner with the retail stores, retail chain, box chain. Instead of box chain, they are partnered with the insurance. So our target is more into the uninsured and underinsured patients.
Right.
Plus, at the same time, our niche is delivering the drugs to the patients. Like if you'll talk to any teledoc model right now, after you talk to the doctor, you still need to put on your clothes and go to the big box chain and pick up the drug. Versus our niche is we want to deliver the drugs using our network of independent pharmacies directly to their home or office, wherever they are located. So that's the niche that I would like to bring through our Bonham Health.
I appreciate that. That's perfect. And correct me if I'm wrong here. It seems like, and especially coming out of COVID, right, and the exposure you have to business to consumer, direct to consumer, have you noticed just a big trend from customers wanting to be able to access things directly, whether it be mail-in orders and not having to make that trip to the pharmacy, let's say?
Sure, that's the trend. If you look at, as I mentioned in the beginning, the consumerism demand is at all-time high. Digitalization of the pharmacies is at an all-time high. How can you make the patient not to have a retail store anymore? But at the same time, these independents, instead of the reason why we went after, we are aware of the independent pharmacies. The patients trust the independent pharmacies more than their doctor. Because if they have, first of all, to get an appointment with an independent or with a primary care doctor, it may be a week. Versus I have because the independent pharmacy knows my last name, my family history, and everything. They've been in the business a long time, and so they know the family history. First of all, before I call the doctor, I say, "Hey, Mr. X pharmacist, I have this condition. What should I do?" So that's the kind of a relationship these independent pharmacists have with the thing. That's the reason the trust is already there. Now, if I can make these independent pharmacies more digitalized, more accessible to the consumer, whether it's the digital health and the delivery of the drugs, that's what I'm making this empowerment of these 12,000. I know I don't know whether I stepped away from the question, but that's what the digitalizing experience of how can I make these pharmacies more prone for the future generations, future technology, and at the same time, give them the same treatment that they usually get when you walk into a retail independent pharmacy.
Right. And you touched on it perfectly. And I think the trust level is huge, right? I think when you go to get a prescription, they usually ask you, hey, where do you want to pick up your prescription? Where do you typically go to get that? So that's all perfectly in line. And thank you for some of the overview there. And there's we could definitely dive into that deeper. I think maybe getting onto the financials a little bit, I think that would be helpful for our viewers also. And just a kind of brief overview of what I saw. It seems like you guys are positive net operating profits, 7 of the last 12 quarters. You have a robust balance sheet, I think over $5 million in cash with minimal debt. And a very experienced management team. And you guys, which I always like to see this, I think this is really important and telling for investors. A majority of the ownership stake in the company is owned by the senior management, so in senior leadership. Could you talk about kind of the financial stewardship of the organization that drives you?
Sure. That's a great question. First of all, we're not working for the sweat equity. We've invested hard cash into this, both Sean and I. And so I'm equivalent to the rest of the shareholders. We are vested interest in the company to grow this to the next level. And that's with the segue. Let me walk into first of all, the revenue models. We have two distinct revenue models. Of course, the B2B, we have the revenue model like a PayPal or MasterCard, Visa kind of a pay structure. And the volume that we move through, we make it on average price 3 to 4% of the percentage of the dollar value that move through the system. And currently we're moving around $300 million to the transactional volume. But that's a drop in the ocean when you're comparing to a $72 billion purchasing power these independents have. And granted, even if they buy 80% from the big three, 20% is almost like $14 billion market that I'm going after. Making $1 billion transactional volume is very easy. With our blended rate of 4%, that's a $40 million. Most of the stuff flow through the bottom line with an existing infrastructure. It's a technology play now, not anymore. I can increase the employees and stuff. That's on the B2B. So we're on that path that continues to move and increase as I mentioned, 12,000 independent pharmacies. Now, how can I increase per store purchase per month? Again, average pharmacy that does 3 to 3.5 million per year. They buy $250,000 to $300,000 worth of drugs per month. Are they buying 100% through me? No, currently no. So that's what we are trying to provide. Can I add additional categories? Like if you walk into independent store, you just don't find prescription drugs. That 72 billion market I've given you is just only prescription drugs. You have DMEs, you have OTCs, over the counter, you have cannabis, CBD oils, other like Halloween costumes, greeting cards. So if you walk into a store, they have 3,000 different SKUs that they carry. I'm trying to add additional categories. That's on the B2B side, how I'm trying to grow. And of course, organically, we're still adding around 100 to 150 pharmacies per month right now. And the inorganic growth is the one that per store purchase per month is the one that we would like to see that increasing every month on month or quarter on quarter. When I come to the B2C side, which is the consumer bottom health, our revenue model is two different distinct model there. One, I make a subscription model there. As I mentioned, it's a $19.99 through the retail stores that a subscription model for the consumer. But of course, we have a partner wholesale price and so on and so forth. The second item there is the single care discount card that they've used. Each patient uses the discount card. I know you are familiar with GoodRx and stuff. Mm-hmm. We partner with Single Care. Single Care has 15 million patients that are promoting our bottom health to use their prescription card, discount card. We make $3.50 for every prescription. That's 100% margin. I know you haven't heard about any 100% margin business. There, we have nothing else. If the patient use that discount card, we make $3.50. And they, like that, Single Care has 15 million patients. So those are the two revenue models that we try to go. And coming to our balance sheet, you're exactly right. With the $5 million cash sitting in with a zero to minimal debt, I think we have around $200,000 debt with a 6% interest. When we did a pharmacy acquisition, that's the debt sitting on the balance sheet. We have no sweat to meet that. On top of it, despite the pandemic, we're continues to generate the cash on cash basis. We're still profitable. We're just only reason we're losing on the gap-based principle is because of the option expenses and so on, and research R&D expenses. But we're still generating the revenues, and of course, these are our revenue channels, and we continues to improve on that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. And it's interesting that you mentioned that a technology in your algorithm, and I found that at the core of going through researching, it is a technology company in a way. It's and it's highly profitable and it's very low capital intensive. I think that can be great for shareholders.
Sure, absolutely, Jason. Yeah, our solution is to create the largest digital pharmacy network in the country, and to optimize the pharmaceutical supply chain and health services deliveries like never before. Mm-hmm. And we want the patient healthcare journey After see the doctor, like at 2-3 hours, and then they need to stand in the big box chain to pick up their drug for an hour to hour and a half, instead of focusing their health outcome, and they're focusing on like a fragmented pharmacy services. That's what I'm trying to change. Patient expect to be able to seamlessly see the doctor from the comfort of their home and get the same day medication delivery at their convenience. And that's what Trxade Health is all about. I'm trying to create that. We've created a smart supply chain. Now I'm trying to create a smart prescription journey so that patients should never think about it. Yeah, do I need to stand again in a couple of hours? First of all, the pre-authorization is not there. What kind of copay they need to pay, and all that thing I'm trying to take away from it, so that I can give them they can think about the health outcome. But not only that, it's the doctor's interest whether the particular patient has. If you, I know you are aware of the statistics. There are 32% of the prescriptions are unfilled in the United States, and so that's what we're trying to change, Jason. So.
That's incredible. And I couldn't believe the run rate you mentioned, about 100 to 150 pharmacies per month. I mean, it seems like, because I wanted to segue into kind of the competitive landscape and some of the key drivers of growth moving into the future for you guys. That seems like a fantastic, I mean, I couldn't believe the number of retail pharmacies in the US alone. It seems like a fantastic organic growth rate. So speaking on some of the key drivers, could you also talk about some of the kind of the competitive landscape and how you guys are kind of maybe juxtaposed to some of your competitors?
Sure. On the B2B side, the competitive landscape is there are a couple of companies that after we started, we established a first mover advantage in this space a long time ago in B2B. How do we separate ourselves from our landscape is our data analytics and pricing analytics. We run our own algorithms that tells us how the competitive pricing is going on, how the market drugs, just like as I mentioned, it's a commodity. Once it becomes a commodity, you have all kinds of supply chain issues, short supply information, supply and demand, simple economics. Supply goes down, demand goes up, price goes up, and that information is crucially available. That's not readily available for these independents. So I empower them by running our own algorithms, telling that information. So there are a few competitors out there. I think the closest competitor has 3,500 pharmacies versus we have 12,000 pharmacies. But the most important thing is the key growth drivers are the increasing number of independent pharmacies on the platform that are buying, and per store purchase per month spend on our site. And of course, the B2C adoption quicker, and leveraging on our infrastructure of 12,000 independents that has 12 to 15 million patients. But not only that, we are going after the retail chain stores. I know you might have seen the yesterday's press release. The Spartan Nash has partnered with our Bonham Health to offer through their all the independent pharmacies. Similarly, we've announced Kenny Drugs. They have their 178 stores that they have 2 million patients, and like that Brookshire in Texas that we partner. So we're offering these retail stores to partner with them so that we can address their consumer market side of it. So those are the key drivers why this company is trying to grow with an existing infrastructure with less employees, and so the technology should take on its own.
Mm-hmm. That's fantastic. And do you see? Have you seen kind of metrics wise and statistically, consumers wanting more telehealth and digital options in the future versus historically? Maybe even coming out of COVID, if that was a driving factor. But if you could talk about just some of the macros, that would be great. And what you're seeing, so I think it kind of orients to your business perfectly.
Sure, Jason. As first of all, any technology, you have early adopters, then slowly, then the maturity and whole 9 yards will take place. So the younger generation, especially for a non-emergency healthcare needs, patients are depending on these telehealth needs. On top of it, if we can give them the delivery of the drugs to their home. Everybody's why Uber and DoorDash are trying to jump into the healthcare. I know Uber jumped into taking the patient from point A to point B for vaccination or anything. But in the future, it's all about the convenience, right? After, as I mentioned earlier, after I spend 2 to 3 hours with the doctor, I don't have time to. First of all, I'm sick. On top of it, I spend 3 hours waiting for the doctor to see me. Now I got to go pick it up. I'm wait for an hour and a half to the box in. And that's what I'm trying to eliminate and give them, that whether it's office or home, okay, so you can take rest. If not take rest, at least you can spend your time on what is important for you, that watching a baseball game or a basketball game versus standing in the box chain.
Right. And that's really the patient experience, right? The patient journey.
Yes.
That's a great, I feel like that's a great value proposition for Trxade.
That's correct. Yeah, that's what the journey. First of all, making these 12,000 independent pharmacy, digitalizing them, giving them the digital experience to the patient, and at the same time, because these independents don't have the time or money to spend on putting their digitalizing shop. Yeah, they can offer online, and they can join the DoorDash for the delivery and stuff, but everybody knows what kind of model they are, because the prescriptions are not run on that kind of a bigger margins. So that's what these independents struggle, and we're trying to able to offer that those technology solutions.
Mm-hmm. And is the software that they're using and they're interfacing with, is it providing a lot of data for them as well? Is it a statistical kind of arm for them also, as in addition to just a B2C or B2B application for them? Is it also kind of a lot of statistics and metrics coming out of it that are helpful to them?
Yeah, you hit a nail on the head on the data analytics. That's how we separate ourselves from the other competition is. I know these pharmacies, as you're aware, we've been in the business since 2010. We're collecting almost 30 million data points for the last 10 years a day. And so it couples so that, I'll just throw an example. I know, don't take in the pandemic situation, but 2019, if the flu is coming, and then people need to be prepared since September. If the flu season is February and March, the supply chain starts in September. That information flow, like if there is a raw material that's not available or API is not available, that's tough for these independents to know. And what is the price inclination is going to be there, where it is coming from, raw material is coming from, whether it's from China or India. And most of the generic manufacturer comes from India. So there are a lot of issues that goes into this, just not only selling the drugs, but how the formulation happened or API is coming from. And those are the ones that we're trying to run the algorithms and give them the information and tell them, at least we will try to eliminate 80 to 90% of uncertainty and give them the certainty, so that way they don't lose that customer. Because as I mentioned, supply and demand goes up. And if a patient walks into your store, you tell them that you don't have the drug, that patient, we may not know that he will come back again, because he can move into so that's the competitive landscape we try to provide to these independents. So that two advantages: one, the better customer service; two, if the price goes up, he can have a better margin to keep for himself, these independents.
Right, and I feel that's a huge benefit. Supply chain, I feel like now in 2021, there's delays for everything. Raw materials and supply chains are under a ton of stress. Depending on especially what industry you're working in. Kind of tying into that, have you seen that in this pharmaceutical space, where kind of supply chains and raw materials are actually been stressed a little bit, and where Trxade's platform is actually even more beneficial than ever, because there's so many supply chain issues now? I never even realized that there's a supply, you have to be, they don't just have this stuff laying around, it's flu season's coming. They need to prepare for that. There could be anything. And if they don't have it in stock, they could go somewhere else. So
Sure.
Have you noticed the kind of pressures on supply chains now more coming out of COVID?
Yeah, especially the pandemic has created that artificial vacuum, right? For example, like everybody was mad rush for PPEs and stuff back in March of 2020. And yes, we saw the spike in the sales, but it's coming to the normalization. But you see some of the negative results in our first quarter. Some of these retail stores are not still 100% open because of some of the states are not 100% open, and some of the stores have been shut down. Some of the stores they have to buy from the big three because of the contracts. So those are the issues that we still continue to evolve. And to answer the question, yes, the supply chain is a big issue for the pharmaceuticals because the API, which is active pharmaceutical ingredient, come from China, and formulation come from India, and the shipments are not coming. And especially India, you've seen the most recently, they're all over the news. Their big impact on the manufacturing, their lockdowns, and so that trickles down to the manufacturing, that trickles down to the the drug prices and the whole 9 yards. So we are paying the price for it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And it seems like going through your the investor presentation as well, it kind of mentioned maybe accelerating growth into 2022, and that kind of is in line with what you mentioned, that these pharmacies have been closed. The physical locations may have been closed, and they're reopening now, and people are kind of going outside more. They're leaving their house more. So is that a dynamic that plays into your future growth drivers, at least in the short term?
Yes, that's one of the drivers for 2022, and the other initiatives that what we have done, the GPO program and our B2C programs that are going to be in line with what is our growth drivers that we anticipated in 2022.
Great. And we're sort of coming to the end. I wanted to kind of just ask a few more questions about the ecosystem and how it differentiates from kind of some competitors, right? So could you just talk about the benefits of having a holistic ecosystem versus just kind of hey, you purchase, and I think you touched on this earlier a little bit too, it's just adding more value to the patient ultimately. But what is the benefit of having that holistic approach that Trxade has, and kind of having almost like a one-stop shop? Forgive me if that's a bad analogy, but kind of one location that they can go to versus having to have it really separated out for these pharmacies, for their customers.
No, that's a great segue into, as I mentioned, Trxade is solving the problem of inefficient alternative source pharmaceutical supply chain. But tomorrow's Trxade will be solving larger healthcare issues of like how to deliver better care coordination among providers to optimize patient health outcomes. Like we're building a successful circle of healthcare services so that the disenfranchised patients, where their non-urgent care and pharmacy services can't share. That's what I'm trying to become. We believe that patients with the easy access to their health records are better informed and able to engage their own well-being. Of course, we streamline their journey when talking to the healthcare providers and optimize the delivery of prescription like other healthcare services to them. Like along their journey, we'll be able to offer them prescription discounts, much like a GoodRx, and of course, national distribution support, like a quicker pharmacy services, much like Uber Health, because our stores are local, and our coordinated care between providers to deliver right medication faster, much like Optimize RX. That's how the differentiator Trxade ecosystem from a supply chain to the. So, for a better lack of words, I'm trying to. We intend to bring the doctor and pharmacy into patients' home for their non-urgent care inexpensively and instantaneously. And almost like an end-to-end solution the industry desperately lacks, and we're like looking for the support in getting us there.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I'll even say someone very close to me had a procedure just recently. The follow-up appointment was all done digitally, no driving to the location, 45 minutes away. It's just all telehealth, very easy, 5 minutes, done. So massive benefits there. And thank you for that.
Yeah, on top of it, if the drugs can be delivered to your home or office, and that's even better, right? Using our own independent network of pharmacies, because I know Amazon has a pill pack model, but that's for maintenance medication. If you're sick, you want to take the drug today, not tomorrow, not day after tomorrow. So our model is like if you're the same day delivery is our niche, using our network of independent pharmacies. So we have an AI, artificial intelligence, that can tell where the patient is located within 3 to 5 mile radius. We can able to push that prescription to the closest to the patient, where probably today you might want to pick up the drug from your office versus on your home, way back to home, or otherwise you're traveling to somewhere else today, but you still forgot your prescription medication. You can able to get into that local, wherever the city you're visiting. So we should be able to deliver the drug locally to you. So that's the niche that we're trying to build a full ecosystem here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's a great differentiating factor, because I feel a lot of times when you leave the doctor, you're typically driving right to the pharmacy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you might have to go home if there's a wait time, but you kind of want to get it done all in the same motion versus if you're sick, I got to go back out after, or I got to send someone to get my prescription for me. So that makes total sense. There's a lot of synergies there.
Yes, it's a convenience and peace of mind. Okay, once I tell the pharmacy, and the doctor, the last question is going to ask you is where you want to send the prescription, and we want to send this is the location, like our apps that are coming in. So then once that they tell us, that we take over the journey. We look for the copay, how much the patient has to pay, and where he's located. Is there any alternatives, and then finally deliver the drug where the patient is located.